Full disclaimer before we start this video then, overall I would say that I am still looking forward to Gotham Knights, and currently I do have a pre-order in for the game. Now, the two main reasons for that is, one, I'm a massive superhero nerd, I love to consume anything to do with superheroes, and the second one, being a content creator, if you want to cover a game you need to get access as early as you can. So in my case I need to be covering it day one if I'm looking to do videos on it at all. Now, on top of that as well, actually being a content creator, the game's pretty expensive. For the edition I bought, it's £70, which is a fair amount. However, I only will need a few videos to do well in order to make that back, so the risks for myself are actually really low. Now, if I wasn't a content creator, if I wasn't buying it to do videos on it, and I was just buying it to play the game and nothing else, then I would say it's looking really risky at the moment to actually pre-order the game or buy it before you've checked out any reviews, because there's quite a few major red flags we have at the moment for it. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to run over these red flags, that way you can make up your mind on your own whether or not you want to pre-order, whether or not you want to buy, or if you want to wait until reviews are out before you actually dive in. But let's start this off. We're going to talk about something that just came up on the last day, but this is a really pretty big red flag, this one. So the first major red flag we have here is really a big one. This came to light just in the last day, and it's really in regards to performance, and also on the back of that, the transparency of the developers as well. So it was leaked by an early reviewer that the next gen versions of the games on console would only be running at 30 frames per second. This is something that many players have been asking for a fair amount of time, and there was no response from it, but it looks like this early access reviewer managed to force the hand, and we got a response. Here's a response here on screen. You can see it's just on Discord at the moment. They need to be putting this on Twitter, they need to put this on other social media, because players need to be aware of this. So on your next gen consoles, the game will run, I believe, at native 4K, but it will only be 30 frames per second. Now, if you're someone that's only really played 30 frames per second, you'll be used to that and you'll most likely find it fine. Personally, myself, I'm always one to jump onto the next gen consoles as soon as I can, and I've been a PC player for quite some years, so my eyes without a doubt are more adjusted towards 60 frames per second. When I go back and I play a 30 frames per second game, for me personally, it's next to unplayable. It may sound like an exaggeration, but again, if you're someone that's used to 60 frames and you go back to it, it just can't be done at all. So for that reason, I actually cancelled my PlayStation 5 pre-order, and I will be playing it on PC instead. And once again, as I mentioned earlier on in the video, I don't agree with a lot they're doing at the moment, but I'm a content creator, so I need to suck it up, and I still need to get the game if I want to do content. So you've got that. Now, that obviously hints towards the fact there could be performance issues with the game, that it's locked down at 30 frames per second, and it's just not a good experience. But the real big issue on top of that for me as well, and it's something that really bothers me a lot when it comes to game developers, is the lack of transparency. Now, this is something that it shouldn't have come out a week before the game actually came out, because for a lot of people, myself being one of them, this is an absolute game breaker, being able to only play the game at 30 frames per second. They should have announced this way before now, and it looks like the only reason they actually announced it is because their hand was forced on it. So yeah, your two major red flags that tie in with that is, one, the potential performance of the game, but for me, probably most importantly, I think I've lost a lot of trust in the developers, which is really sad for that to have happened already. The next red flag we have here came about as a result of the fact that we now have access to the full skill trees for all 4 characters. Now, this, to an extent, I will admit, it's a red flag that may only apply to certain players. It all depends on what you're looking for out of the game. If you're like myself, and I imagine you most likely will be, hence why you're watching the channel, but if you're like myself, then you look to really get your teeth into a game and you're looking for a lot of variety when it comes to builds. Now, each of the 4 different characters will have 3 skill trees that have 7 skills within them, so that's 21 skills in total. 5 of those skills, that's close to a third, are actually generic skills that are essentially just stat sticks. So they are, for example, an extra 10% crit chance, an extra 20% crit damage, or 1 more hit in a combo. So that's almost a third of the skills for all 4 characters that are completely generic, the same across all 4 of them, and it's just adding stats to your character. There's nothing unique about it at all, so that for me is definitely worrying. On top of that as well, I would say there's some characters where it looks like their kit feels like it's a little bit underdeveloped. There are some characters that are absolutely incredible, the likes of Batgirl. She looks amazing, she should have been the benchmark for all the other characters, but you have the likes of Red Hood. I'll probably get a lot of hate for saying this because I think everyone wants the main Red Hood, but when you actually look at his skill tree, without a doubt it's the most disappointing out of the heroes. Within his last skill tree, he has 3 skills that are simply just damage increases to certain mob types. Now, if I was to be generous, from a flavour perspective, it may actually work that he's doing additional damage to these mobs because he maybe hates them more and he's full of rage, but from a gameplay perspective, this really is exceptionally simple and it's a really boring choice to be made. Finishing up my concerns over build variety, you have the fact that when we look through the skill trees for characters, you have various different skills where it'll say it'll boost damage, it'll boost a particular stat, but it doesn't tell you how much it's actually boosting it by, which for me is just absolute bonkers. How can you make a decision if you want to invest in a skill if you don't actually know how much additional damage it's doing, how much chance it has to proc? I just can't get my head around how you can have a skill tree based system and not put in specific percent based numbers on it. The last red flag we have here is one that I'm not going to get too specific about because it's one that will most likely drive drama towards the channel and it's not something I'm interested in at all. But I have noticed that quite a lot of people get early access to the game recently. Now I've noticed that quite a few of the people that get early access to the game that are normally quite glowing about games, and to be honest that's normally how you get early access, is you rein in your criticism of the game, but I've noticed with quite a few content creators that got early access that in the last day or so they've been putting out quite passive aggressive tweets towards their audience in regards to the actual quality of the game and whether or not players will like it, and saying things along the lines of, well, if you don't like it, well, that's your decision not to like it and you can go away, I'm not really interested in your opinion. That to me kind of sounds a little bit like they know the game is probably going to be a 6 or a 7 out of 10, which is fine. 6 or 7 out of 10 games can be good, but they've hyped it up higher than that and they know there's a bit of a backlash coming and they're trying to get in front of it already. Once again, I'm not going to name any specific names, but if you go out and if you look at some of the people that have been covering the game, you can most definitely see that a form of damage control has been done with content creators on the subject of that. If you want to follow a content creator that's absolutely fantastic and how he doesn't have millions of subs, I don't know, check out Skill Up. He done a preview of the game which was great. Skill Up is always absolutely fantastic, even though people call him Shill Up. It's a joke because he's absolutely awesome, so feel free to check him out. But that is the red flags that I would say are about at the moment for Gotham Knights. Once again, despite all this, I'm looking forward to the game because I've not had a superhero game to get my teeth into in quite some time. And yeah, we'll see how it goes when it comes out. But if you're someone that maybe doesn't have a lot of disposable money and a game purchase really can eat into the amount of money you have, then I would definitely hold off until reviews are out for this one. But thanks for tuning in, stay safe, I'll see you all again soon.